Hello, I'm called Tim. I'm a member of the bottom 1%. All I have is the knowledge in my head, and I'm willing to share that with you. I've been thinking a lot about 1984 by George Orwell and how excited I was when I read it in college, and how it's about 19, 20 years old. And I went up to my professor and I said, this is how I'm living now. This was in the early 90s, and my community had been through the crack era, and I said, this is us. This is what we've been through. And so in a sense it was normal, but to see a book where he was talking about fascism on a national scale, and I was looking at what Reagan and Bush 1 was doing, and I couldn't understand why people weren't listening to this book. It's a comic book. Everybody had read 1984 by George Orwell. I had heard people say this is Orwellian, that's Orwellian. So to get into the book, George Orwell takes his book. He creates this society where there are the ruling class, of course, divides it into three groups. You have the ruling class, which is the inner party, the middle class, which is the outer party, and the pros. And the pros live on the bad side of town. They do whatever they want. They kind of, I guess, they're working. They're on the low end. And the inner party does most of the labor for the society. And the inner party reaps all the benefits and tells everyone else what to do. Now, in this society um, that we share, first of all, the people are monitored 24/7. There's two-way televisions called telescreens, and you can't turn the television off. So they're always watching you. Two, they do something with the language. They reduce language in this society. Uh, so there's no such word as fantastic or great or wonderful. There's good, plus good, double plus good. That's it. So your mind is already restricted into what you can image or imagine. And I thought that was man, really great. I see more of that now than I did then. They also control who can have babies and when. They turn the children on the parents, and they can arrest you for what you think. And I see a lot of that going on now. You haven't harmed anybody, you haven't hurt anybody, you just thought something or expressed the thought, and then you go and you get arrested. And their punishment is always torture. And so our main character, for instance, he ends up getting tortured for keeping a journal. All right. So they reduce language. They use fear to keep their society in control. Turn children against parents. Um, they monitor you. And here's the thing too: the pros also have their literature and entertainment. And inside the outer party, one of the jobs is to create pornography and degenerative material to send to the pros. And damned if we're not watching uh, reality shows and entertainment shows and cable news, which is much more fictionalized today than actual fictional shows and movies. I find, for instance, I learned more about how this world runs on a show called The Blacklist, based on watching Russian television and books that I have read and secret society books that I have read and how things work, than I do watching any kind of CNN or Fox or local news. So we've reached this point where we have this society that George Orwell introduced. And the greatest thing that George Orwell does in this book, which is the greatest terror with all of this stuff that goes on, right? Also, the inner party controls history. I didn't tell you that. In this book, they take an old newspaper, they rewrite it, burn the old one so that it never happened, right? They'll rewrite history, burn the history, and then it didn't happen. They'll come back, rewrite it, burn the old one, and you have nothing to reference to but the latest one that they wrote. In this country, it's reversed. They gave us bad history before. Now, historians feel freer to come out and give us the true history. Probably because the ruling class knows most of us are paying attention to reality shows and all that stuff. So they do all of that, but the most terrifying thing about this society is that everyone in the society goes along with it and is very gung-ho about living in this kind of tyranny. And I see that very much now. I mean, people know that this society that we live in is no good. They know it's a police state, but they say, what are we going to do? We need to pay our bills, so we go to work, we keep our head down. And I think that's why I've been thinking about 1984 a lot the last few weeks. It really was triggered by an NYPD program where they're going to employ the youth and use them as decoys to go up to, say, a poor old man standing in front of a bodega or a gas station, and they'll say, Mister, will you buy me a beer? And give him $1, offer him $1. He goes in to buy the beer. He gets arrested. Or they go into a store and say they want cigarettes or beer. They had one Spanish girl, and this is only black and Spanish children. She went into the bodega and spoke to the lady in Spanish, and the lady, thinking that she was one of them, and these are teenagers, thinking that they were kind of together, sold her cigarettes. Now, should you sell the teenagers cigarettes? No, that's against the law. But here's the odd thing. They're going to lock these people up, and by the way, the Spanish lady lost her job and is going to lose her working permit, which means she probably will be deported. The man who was arrested for buying someone a beer is going to have to pay a $1,000 fine, which he doesn't have, and do 24 hours community service. And I'm pretty sure because he doesn't have the $1,000, he'll do more community service. So you're turning the children against the parents, which in our communities we haven't done much for our children, so we kind of deserve it. But it just reminded me of this 1984. And the funny thing is with this program is a child is not supposed to buy cigarettes or drink, but when you lock a child up in juvie or charge them as an adult and they go in prison, they smoke cigarettes. So here's the hypocrisy, where they're going to pay these young people money because they know that unemployment is so high in our community because we haven't developed any commerce for our youth, and they're going to turn them against the elders, getting slave labor for the foreseeable future. And the question still is to me, why have we ignored 1984? If you haven't read it, read it. Even if you don't want to get involved in political things, it's a really, really good book. George Orwell is a really good writer. So partake in that, and until I see you again, please take care of yourself. Oh, before I sign off, this is only my third hangout, so excuse me. I want to give my viewers and people in the chat room a chance to speak because this is a live hangout. We encourage thought to go back and forth. If you want to speak now, or forever hold your peace. Going once, going twice. All right, signing off. Until next time, please take care of yourself.